Welcome back to another episode of the Outdoor Adventures Hunting Podcast from Brownfield Ag News. I'm Brownfield anchor reporter Brent Barnett. Today's show is brought to you by Bex. Nominate your Bex player with heart at brownfieldagnews.com and search player with heart. Well, opening day for the bow season in Iowa is this weekend, Sunday, October 1st. And who better to talk with me about it than a friend of mine from Central Iowa? Kent Boucher is with us on the program. How's it going, Kent?
Hey, doing well, Brent. Thanks for bringing me back on your show.
Yeah, you were on here recently. Oh, maybe about a month or two ago, I think.
Yeah.
Kent, you host a podcast yourself.
Yep.
Tell us more about First Gen Hunter before we get going.
Yeah. Well, First Gen Hunter is rolling right along. We just had a story about a guy who arrowed a 185-inch velvet muley over in Colorado, and so that's the latest episode that's up there. But we've kind of been working through whitetails mostly. We got some other stuff coming up in the near future. I'd probably like to get back and get a few more elk stories in there, and maybe see if I can track down a fall bear story as well. But things are going well over there, and we got something for everybody. So definitely tune in. And I'm going to do a little plug for a specific episode.
Yeah.
If you just want to like break the ice on listen to the First Gen Hunter podcast, go to episode 113. It's about the craziest grizzly attack story you will have ever heard. I'll just leave it at that.
Sounds like people need to check that out. And an 85-inch muley, can you imagine drawing back on something like that?
I'd have a hard time keeping it together, brother.
I have a hard enough time on a doe, let alone.
That's right.
But man, so this Sunday, opening day, what are you thinking heading into the season?
Well, it's I think the most underutilized time in the deer season, other than maybe you could say the same for the late season, which admittedly I have not done very well in the late season. But with this October timeframe, a lot of guys say the best way to hunt October is to not hunt, and I just couldn't disagree more. We're at a point now where deer are until well after the rut, they are at their most predictable patterns. They're not on the same summer pattern. So what you saw on your trail cameras in July is not going to still be true now in October. However, they still are doing a lot of the bed to feed activity. And here in Iowa, unfortunately for the opener, it's going to be like high 80s, almost 90 degrees, I think. Yeah, lower 90s now. That's even gone up since I last looked. So that is not an ideal ideal weather conditions for deer hunting. That being said, in the last few minutes of legal light, there's a good chance deer are going to be up on their feet. And another thing that's going on that's kind of unusual this year around the opener is so much of the corn is coming down. Beans as well, of course, but to me, corn just impacts where deer are going to be found in October more than beans do. Simply because it's a cover factor, and that is the greatest limiting factor on most farms in Iowa is enough whitetail habitat. And so I'm actually planning to go out on the opener because I have a tree stand that I put up specifically this year to get my 6-year-old son to sit in the stand with me. I put up a double. I'm not a big ladder stand fan, but for little kids, they're great. Also great for gun hunting, but it will be our best opportunity because the person who leases our farm ground has already started the corn harvest. He's about halfway done. And I think out of the kindness of his heart, he left the section that is close to that tree stand for me. And in another week, it'll probably be gone. So if I'm going to get my son out there, I gotta strike while the weather is hot, unfortunately. But yeah, I've just had enough history there where even on warm days when you just really are focused on that last 15 minutes of legal light, deer have been bedded down all day. They're sick of, just laying around, maybe standing up a little bit and browsing in their beds They want to get up and start moving around again, and that's when it's going to finally start. Temperature's going to get a little bit more manageable, and just from a weather standpoint, our humidity, even though it's going to be hot, it's going to be like an Arizona hot. The corn is all dried out, the beans are dried out in most cases. There's just not as much of that low hanging moisture in the atmosphere, and so those temperature shifts can happen a little bit more quickly. So I think you can still find value in the evenings, and put yourself in a nice transition area coming out of since it is going to be that last 15 minutes. You can't like go to that, okay, where's that super desirable food plot or that food source that they're really going to want. You're going to run out of daylight before they get there unless their bedding is super close to it. So I'd find a transition area maybe coming right out of the corn or right out of the timber, kind of a timbered bottom if you got the right wind, which can be tough when you're down in those bottoms and those thermal shifts are changing and everything. But get somewhere where the deer are going to be immediately, and so you can have some time. And I'd also prioritize unless you have a specific buck that where his bed is, you got maybe camera evidence. Really, what I think the best evidence is you bump him when you go in to set up a stand, and you can see. I mean, not now, not during the hunt. Back in September, you bumped him, and you could see where his bed was. You could see where he was browsing around, and then I'd say it's acceptable to go hunt a buck, especially again since the landscape is changing so quickly with the harvest going on. That alone is going to shift deer around a little bit, or not even a little bit, a lot. And so, I really think that if you can get in there before the harvest has happened, and you're playing the wind smart, you're doing good with your scent control, no harm, no foul. And I think it's also a great time to get a doe on the ground and kind of build that confidence. So when that 185 comes walking through, you can, just wash, rinse, repeat.
Yeah, you got to be ready. Got to be on your toes. Don't get caught looking at your phone or something and have an opportunity.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
I think there's also some prime opportunity in the early season, more than people think, during the morning. Just here this week, I was on the road for a work event, and here in central part of the state, and it was about 9 or 9:30, Kent, and I saw a group of does out in the middle of a CRP field feeding, and they're going to work back to bedding eventually. And I just think that mid to late morning time frame early in the season is kind of underrated.
Yeah, definitely. Especially if you have a nice cold front, which that is the good thing about having a hot spell, an unusually hot spell in October, is that's not going to stick around. You know what I mean? It's going to be gone within a few days. And so I'd be looking at those that half week coming after this big warm up this weekend. There's going to be a massive cold front. And I mean, it's not going to get down into 30s, no. Yeah, but when you're at 92 or whatever it's going to be, and you go down to 78, that's a big pressure shift. And for whatever reason, that just really seems to get deer on their feet. And I agree, in the mornings when you got a cold front like that, you can definitely see that. Or, if just, again, let's go back to the harvest. These combines are out, tractors are out, grain trucks are out all over the place. Four-wheelers are going around as guys are working, and it's pushing deer around, and it's kind of like hunting deer on the pheasant opener. Not a bad time to be in the stand. You got people that are pushing deer for you, you know what I mean? And if you are ready to go in a reasonable area travel route, just from that alone, that can open up an opportunity as well. So I agree with you, Brent. I think that's a good observation.
Well, and I agree with your point on the last 15 to 20 minutes of daylight in a really hot day. Kent, the buck I killed with my bow in 2021 was October 7th, and we had a heat wave come through, kind of similar to this. It was 89 degrees that day, and within the last 15 to 20 minutes, I must have been set up pretty close to where that buck was bedded down, because he moved pretty slowly into bow range, and I made a good shot at 25 yards.
Awesome,
and
man.
In the middle of the thick timber, and he only went 40 yards and piled up. So that was picture perfect, right?
Yeah, you're getting me all excited now, man. I want to go now.
That was a really good feeling. And hopefully we can, make that happen again. But just that you kind of feel it too, right? The wind dies down, it gets
Mm-hmm.
super still, super calm, and you almost feel like the deer could hear you breathe from in the stand. That was the way I felt that
Mm-hmm.
night. And then I already had my bow in my hand without even seeing anything, just ready for something to happen,
Yeah.
to limit
That's good
movement
discipline.
because just to limit that, yeah, just to limit that movement and that potential noise if something were to be in range. And sure enough, I turned around, he's completely behind me. Always seems to work out that way,
Yep.
behind the tree. And when I first saw him, he was at 40 yards. And uh, I think there was 2 minutes left before the end of legal shooting time, and I made that shot. And it just really paid off. So I think you made a good point. That last 15 to 20 minutes, really be on your toes. And I have the bow in hand and my release connected to the D loop.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, and I mean, everyone should be doing what Brent said there because it's 15 minutes. You can't stay hyper vigilant for 15 minutes, then you might want to be more of a pheasant hunter, and you got a month to wait then. But you gotta stay disciplined through the whole process, but especially those last 15 minutes. And I think it just makes sense too when you think about what's been going on in a buck's life at this point, right? He's shed his velvet. He's probably away from his bachelor group. Although I still see some bucks, kind of they'll travel around together even during the season. So it's not like there's a 100% accurate fit to every situation, but in most cases those bucks are going to be split up. But he's in his comfort zone again. He knows this farm that he's on. If he's a mature buck, he's probably been on this farm for multiple years. He knows that he hasn't felt the pressure of a lot of hunting yet. He's going to saunter out there. He's sick of being in his bed all day because it's hot. Now that it's finally cooled off 10 degrees or whatever, he's going to get up and start moseying out to his favorite food, his favorite buffet line that he's going to hit that night. And he's just going to be, in my opinion, a little easier to kill than come late, October, which, yeah, his testosterone levels picking up every day, going towards the rut, and he's getting, a little lovesick, but he still has seen some hunting pressure most likely at that point. And I think just early on, you can really catch him, kind of like when would we be most vulnerable, after someone went flying by our house the night before, blasting their horn or, and screaming out the window at 2 a.m. or, any other night where it's just a peaceful, calm night. It's been that way for the last, 51 weeks in a row. And why would week number 52 of the year, why would that be any different? We'd be relaxed and calm and everything's all well. And so if you can get to a deer when they're in that same frame of mind, when they haven't seen all that pressure and they're on their safe, normal routine, man, that's a buck that's going to be probably have his guard at the lowest that he's going to have all season.
Probably even more pivotal on public land, wouldn't you say, when you think about
Absolutely.
just how much pressure they'll be bumped around when you get to late October, early November, and especially the late season. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so let's just say you're going in opening weekend, Kent. You're trying to slip back in really quiet, and like me, and I'm clumsy sometimes, step on a big branch and it makes a loud pop. I immediately, in those instances, just stop in my tracks and wait
Yep.
for like 5 minutes. But I don't know. You might have an opportunity there where maybe, deer that haven't been bumped around its early season, they get curious and they wander in. You never know.
Yeah, that's right. And something else that plays into that is, I really think there's a difference between hunting pressure and stand hanging pressure. I can't tell you how many times when I've, hung stands in the summer, I go walking in and all of a sudden a deer busts after I've been there for, I get within 15 yards of them, and if you're walking to your stand during the hunting season, kind of it can be the same thing. You might make a little bit of noise, but as long as you're not doing anything too egregious or like really sneaking around and acting like a predator, I think you can get away with a little bit too with this lower pressure time frame. But yeah, I agree. This is the time to not overlook. But with that being said, everyone should be very careful, be especially careful with your access to your stand. Be smart. In Iowa, we can't use cover as much um, in a lot of cases, but we can use topography. A lot of people think Iowa is flat. That's the case in some places, but definitely not everywhere. Not where Brent and I are at. I use hills and valleys all the time to get undetected to my stand. And so be looking at your farm in a different way and how you can do that. Don't be afraid to walk a ways. You don't need to drive within 20 yards of your stand on your four-wheeler or your truck. I mean, maybe that's what you just enjoy doing and you don't really care if you get a shot opportunity, you just want to get out, fine. But if your goal is to get a shot opportunity on a nice animal, you got to be willing to take the long way and the best way, and get in there and play the wind right. Don't shortcut the wind, because if they do see you in that stand, and they do realize that you're a threat, you've now dramatically increased the hunting pressure load on your farm and how they're going to respond. So you still got to be smart, but don't overlook these first days, not at all.
You mentioned a lot of the corn and soybeans being harvested. Of course, there was an earlier than expected start to harvest this year because of the drought conditions. When you talk about entry, have you ever used corn to your advantage, such as if it's a windy day, maybe go in 2 or 3 rows and just walk the rows to your stand?
Absolutely. I think I love it when I have standing corn on my farm during deer season. A lot of guys hate it because they feel like they can't see anything. Look, if you read the sign the right way, you'll be where the deer are going to end up. It might not be when you expect it, but they'll show up at some point. That corn can really be an asset to you, and I agree, Brent, wholeheartedly. A windy day, walking through a cornfield, man, you could be playing a boom box. Remember like the old 1980s where the guy's like walking down the street in New York City, he's got the boom box on his shoulder. You could basically do that. Don't do that. But it's so loud in there, that the wind hitting all those crinkly corn stalk and the leaves on the stalks. It's just, I mean, you get away with anything. And it's a great scent screen as well. Your scent stream is going to be all broken up by all that corn. It's not going to be drifting way into bedding areas and stuff. And absolutely, I love using corn. And I mean, you got to kind of dance around a little bit. Everyone thinks it's just going to be this, follow the yellow brick road until you get to your tree stand. But there's going to be rows where there's a bunch of stalks that have fallen down from the wind, or raccoons have pulled them down or whatever. And so you're going to have to kind of dance around between rows. But all that being said, it is absolutely an excellent a screen to get to your stand. So use it if you got it.
Well, some states opened up in September, but for Iowa, October 1st, and I know if there's some other states with an October 1st open, but it'll be fun. Kent, before we go, any final tips or advice you'd want to pass along to hunters?
Yeah. Be in it for the right reasons. We all want to shoot our best buck every single year. In reality, that's probably not going to happen. We're gonna get opportunities if we do things the right way and if we're out often enough. So I think the best way to make sure that happens is keeping the right mindset, and the right mindset is doing it for the right reasons. Hunting is enjoyable, right? Hunting is something where we get to participate in the natural world around us. And so if you can view it that way as something that you're here to enjoy, you're here to get some food for your family, you're there to just experience that land that you love, then you can't lose on the season, no matter what you do or do not harvest. And be a good predator too. When you decide to go in at the right time, go under the right conditions. More times than not, you're going to strike out. But on those few times that you do connect, it's going to be when you put the picture or put the whole project together correctly. You got each step of the process down right, and that's when that's when you get to enjoy that. So be a good predator, use good hunting sense, hunt with the right wind direction, hunt those cold fronts, and hunt where the deer are going to be when you need them to be there. And that really goes into what Brent was talking about in those last few minutes of daylight. You got to be in the right location. You can't just be in the spot you want to be in. You got to be in the right spot. And if you can do all that and really, really have the right mindset, you'll put it all together and you're going to get your opportunity. And when you do, enjoy it, live it up,
All
soak
good
it up.
points. I think I would add in just limit distractions. If you're out there, I think it's great being in the outdoors. Just soak it in, look around,
Mm-hmm.
soak in the environment. Nature is great, and you won't miss an opportunity when it comes by that way.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, enjoy seeing all the stuff that you aren't hunting too. I love hearing pheasants crowing and seeing them flying around a little bit. Love seeing raccoons in the morning as they're kind of lazily making their way back to their favorite tree, or turkeys out and about, and all that stuff. Soak it all in. It gives you just that really unique view on the natural world around us, the ecosystems around us that take place on our farm, and we don't oftentimes get to see them except for when we're in the stand.
Kent, it's been great. How do the listeners listen to the First Gen Hunter podcast?
Yeah, well, thanks again, Brent, for having me on. This was a lot of fun. I just feel honored to be here to kick off deer season. It's my favorite time of the year, and if anyone wants to tune into my show, you can find it on anywhere there's any major podcast hosting site. Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcast, Podbean, Stitcher, all that stuff. You can find the First Gen Hunter podcast there.
Thanks a lot for coming on here today, Kent. Hopefully we'll have some good buck stories here throughout the season. We'll have you back on.
Yeah, hey, that sounds great. Hopefully the next time we're together, we're snacking on some fresh deer sticks or something.
Sounds like a plan. Again, that's Kent Boucher, First Gen Hunter podcast host, right here on Brownfield's Outdoor Adventures. I'm Brent Barnett.